Correct.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to testify before you on the subject of terrorist financing. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to appear before you today. Unlike other terrorist leaders, Osama bin Laden is neither a military hero, a religious authority, or an obvious representative of the downtrodden and disillusioned. Rather, he is a rich financier. He built al-Qaeda's financial network from the foundation of a system originally designed to channel resources to the Mujahideen fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan in the 1980s. Thanks to the leadership of the Bush administration, that network has been disrupted, but it certainly has not been destroyed. And as long as al-Qaeda retains access to a viable financial system, it will remain a lethal threat to the United States. Like al-Qaeda itself, its financial network is deliberately compartmentalized and is characterized by layers and redundancies. Al-Qaeda raises money from a variety of sources and moves money in a variety of manners. It runs businesses operating under the cloak of legitimacy and criminal conspiracies ranging from the petty to the grand. The most important source of al-Qaeda's money, however, is its continuous fundraising efforts. Al-Qaeda's global fundraising network is built upon a foundation of charities, non-government organizations, mosques, Muslim community centers, websites, intermediaries, facilitators, and banks and other financial institutions. Some whose money goes to al-Qaeda know full well the illicit and violent purposes that it will further. Other donors believe their money will fund legitimate humanitarian efforts, but the money is nonetheless diverted to al-Qaeda. For years, individuals and charities based in Saudi Arabia have been the most important source of funds for al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda moves its funds through the global financial system, the Islamic banking system, and the underground Hawala system, among other money transfer mechanisms. It uses its global network of businesses and charities as a cover for moving funds. And it uses such time-honored methods as bulk cash smuggling and the global trade in gold and other commodities to both move and store value. Following September 11th, the Bush administration, building upon the policies of the previous administration, undertook tactical actions to disrupt particular individual nodes in the terrorist financial network and strategic initiatives to change the environment within which terrorists raise and move funds. Tactical initiatives include law enforcement and intelligence activities, along with public designations under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, of persons, businesses, and financial institutions associated with the financial network of al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations. Since much of the subject matter is highly classified, the effectiveness of the tactical measures is difficult to determine. Clearly, there have been successes, such as the recent action targeting the Al Farouk Mosque just across the East River from here. Successes have been made possible due to markedly improved law enforcement and tactical intelligence cooperation from foreign states since September 11th. By contrast, progress in the strategic arena, in my judgment, simply has not been made a high enough priority. Far too many key countries, including virtually all the countries in the Middle East and South Asia, still have in place ineffective or rudimentary bank supervisory and anti-money laundering regimes. In no country, including the United States, are either Islamic charities or the underground Hawala system effectively regulated. Fundamentally, U.S. efforts to curtail the financing of terrorism are impeded not only by a lack of institutional capacity abroad, but a lack of political will among key foreign partners. Some have a history of ignoring the problem. Some perceive correctly or incorrectly that U.S. attention to the problem has waned, and some simply disagree with the U.S. view of the nature and severity of the problem. Confronted with this lack of political will, the current administration, in my view, has not made full use of all relevant legal and policy tools at its disposal. For example, punitive provisions of Title III of the USA Patriot Act enable the executive branch to restrict or prohibit access to the U.S. financial system for foreign states or foreign financial institutions that lack adequate anti-money laundering regimes. This powerful tool remains unused in a terrorist financing context. Finally, I would like to say a few words about the war in Iraq, which I support, but which I fear may retard progress on these critical issues. Even supporters of the war must concede that the United States has not effectively justified the war to many members of the international community. This state of affairs may set back ongoing U.S. efforts to fight terrorism. Terrorist financing is a transnational problem requiring transnational solutions. In almost all cases, the money trail leads or originates overseas. Curtailing terrorist financing therefore requires comprehensive law enforcement and intelligence cooperation with foreign states. Political commitment defines the nature and scope of that cooperation. An internationally unpopular war may make the necessary commitment more difficult. At the same time, the diplomatic imperatives of fighting a war in Iraq may have bumped terrorist financing down the bilateral agenda with critical frontline states. By all external indications, the Saudis and other frontline states have not taken sufficient steps to change the strategic environment that funds extremism. Appropriate regulation of charities, hawala, and the formal banking system, along with the reining in of the madrasa educational system, among other things, requires a fundamental commitment to long-term structural reform. While laws, regulations, and decrees are difficult to come by, there is no credible evidence that comprehensive structural reform is taking place. And yet, we do not appear to be holding the Saudis' feet to the fire. Rather than speaking out loudly and forcefully about their and other states' failure to take steps necessary to assure U.S. security, the United States remains publicly silent on these issues, no doubt captive to the near-term diplomatic imperatives of waging war and assuring the basing and overflight rights, along with the petroleum production commitments that are necessary or desirable in connection with that undertaking. Thank you very much.